Disney and Tiki, there's a connection. There's actually several connections to the two. And today we're going to talk about that. Where should we start? Do we start with the desire for people to escape into full environments?
Well, yes. So the reason why I wanted to have this show was you and I have done a number of episodes on a visit to LA, what the environment that Walt Disney found when he emigrated from the Midwest to Los Angeles, that in turn we think influenced him to build Disneyland, including Clifton's, as we learned, including the Carousel and Griffith Park, and the whole environment of LA. We've done programmatic architecture, and it got me thinking, and I just wanted your insights. I don't have as many insights as to many of our Tiki friends, and I can only speak for the West Coast of the U.S., but maybe nationwide as well. There's a huge and profound overlap between Tiki files and Disney, particularly Disneyland and the Disney theme parks. And many of those of us who are obsessed with Tiki are equally obsessed with the Disney theme parks and Disney as a whole. And I'm just sort of fascinated by that whole thing, and you put your finger on it already. I think the key, and we were talking with some friends last night at Devil's Reef as well, and I mentioned it to them, and they said the whole key was escapism. But there are a lot of other affinity groups, not just Tiki people, who just attach themselves onto Disney and the Disney theme parks. So Ray, I wanted to start with your thoughts about why is this profound overlap, and what your thoughts are, and why is it Disney in particular? Because one other thing, a little more provocative, is we were talking about Star Wars and Disney, or I was thinking last night about Harry Potter and Disney, and while some Tiki files enjoy those, it's less about the role playing that you find in Harry Potter or the Harry Potter or Star Wars or specific genres. It's really more about the experience. And I also wanted to move beyond just the Enchanted Tiki Room, although for many people that's an important element, and pick your brain as to what are the overlaps there, because I find this fascinating.
Well, right off the bat, I want to talk about what makes Disneyland or Disney World unique as opposed to other amusement parks. Because when I think of like any amusement parks that I've ever gone to, they're amusement parks. You go and there's the rides, you know. But that's all there is really. I mean, with Disney though, like say Disneyland, you have Adventureland, you have Fantasyland, you have these different lands, and it's more about these environments, and the rides happen to be in these environments, like the Jungle Cruise ride. You know, I mean, if you take everything out of it, it's a boat ride. You're getting on this boat and you're going around a fake river or whatever.
Right.
But you're in a jungle. You know. So I remember there was Swiss Family Robinson.
Yeah. The treehouse.
I mean, was that even really a ride? I mean, it was just walking around.
You're walking through.
You're literally like walking around like a treehouse. The Haunted Mansion, it was almost like, you know, you're on a buggy, but like here's this tour of this haunted mansion. There was a lot of rides, and I use that word loosely, at Disney that weren't really necessarily rides. It was more about even downtown, like Main Street USA. That's not a ride. No. It's just an area of the park, but it's made to look like your stereotypical downtown. I think the question comes back down to this. I think people love escapism. They want to escape. They want to go to the environment, because I bet you there's a lot of people, like, say if they want to go to Disney, they're not thinking to themselves like, they're not thinking like, I want to go on this like one particular ride because the ride is, oh man, this roller coaster is so exciting. It's like like you say, Space Mountain.
Yeah.
It's like this idea of like this space roller coaster that's enclosed and it's dark. Even there you go. A roller coaster that that's in its own environment.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to tiki bars, it's just that it's the same thing. You see this cool environment and you want to be in it. With Disney, I mean, I think Disney planted a lot of seeds in for a lot of kids. Well, when we were kids, like going to the Enchanted Tiki Room.
Yeah.
Or even that, what was the Enchanted Tiki Room? Jungle Cruise. Well, the Pirates of the Caribbean, that's after my time, but I think that's...
Yeah, because I also... The thing is back when I was when I was handsome, young tyke of about 8 years old, and parents took us to Disneyland for the first time. Yeah. The Tiki Room was interesting. And it kind of stuck with me.
It's not even a ride. It's not a ride. It's like you go into this room and birds talk to you.
But
right?
Right.
And other things move and shit like that.
But if you ask me about... so the chicken and egg, which came first, the appreciation for Tiki or Disney? For many of us, it was Disney, right, as kids. And in my case, it was. But the Enchanted Tiki Room didn't drive me when I wanted to do my own home escapism bar that turned into Tiki. I would say the Haunted Mansion, the Pirates of the Caribbean, to a lesser extent the Jungle Cruise, and then later the Indiana Jones ride. Those places really much more captivated me and influenced me than the Enchanted Tiki Room. And you find in a lot of Tiki lovers, again, I can only speak the West Coast, you can talk broader, nationwide, have the same experience. Some of them, like when you talk to the twins on your video, for them, yes, it was the Enchanted Tiki Room. There's just this beautiful tie-in that they love and appreciate.
You know what? I want to talk about. This is making me think. I want to talk about on our trip.
Mm-hmm.
On our trip, we stopped at the Wacko Plant.
Yep.
And it's essentially a bookstore. It's a bookstore, but it kind of reminded me of there's a place here in Seattle called Archie McPhee's.
Yep.
Which is kind of like a novelty shop. So like this Wacko Soap Plant, is that what it is?
Yeah. So Soap Plant, and then the De Jesus Gallery, the art gallery's attached to it. So it's all one big building.
And what I loved about this place, Stephen, was that like a lot of the different, it was not your normal bookstore, you know, it wasn't like a Barnes & Noble or a Walden Books or anything like that. It was all topics that I am into.
Mid-century modern, burlesque, lowbrow art, surfer culture,
punk rock,
a few Tiki books.
Like, and all these things that aren't maybe related to each other.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I think I said this to you. I said, "Wow, this place is like my subconscious. Like all the things that build up my interests is here." And I think when it comes to Disney, like say if you are a person who got into Tiki through Disney,
yeah,
it ain't maybe it's not just the Enchanted Tiki Room,
right?
It's it is the Haunted Mansion, it is the Jungle Cruise, it is all these other rides and experiences that just kind of are all just in the subconscious. So when you finally did go to a tiki bar when you got old enough, it's sort of like, oh, just all those seeds were planted when you were younger.
And so it just sort of triggers that.
Yeah.
And to take it one step further, then those of us who've been fortunate enough to have the means to create our own home tiki bar have sort of been influenced by that as well, that either consciously or unconsciously it's a trigger. I mean, certainly for me, Disney was a conscious trigger and I've said this before when we've talked, in that when I go to Disneyland, I'll go to Disneyland by myself. I don't care. I will then go to the rides by myself, and I will look backwards and see where the light's coming from and what's influencing what and what creates the environment. I mean, I'll be very analytical about it. I'll still enjoy it for that reason. And then when I come home here, It's like, oh, well, I got to do better about either hiding this light or replacing this light, or how am I going to effectuate this desire? What do I do with the seal? I mean, so I guess there is that tie-in. That the other when it was a child, and either the first or second time I went to Disneyland, the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, what influenced me most was, if you remember, you go in, two things. First, the smell, that kind of rancid, chemically weird smell. And then you go through that little mini water, that water slide, I guess. And then you come into this open space that felt like outdoors, that had the big ships, the galleon ships, shooting cannons at each other. And that whole feel. And then when I walked into Devil's Reef for the first time, I think Jason and Robin were trying to capture that image with the cannons and their wall, and it triggered memories of that as well.
This is my challenge that I'm going to bring out to any future tiki bar builders. And I think these are things that were established with Disney that could be taken to make a very successful tiki bar. The world building. Like, think about it. Like, I think about say, let's get down to like a basic level, like Tiki tea, right? Place is it's very small, right? Mm-hmm. But when I think of Tiki tea, immediately Mike Sr. comes into my mind. Ray Buin, his dad, Then you got Greg and you got Mike Jr. There's these characters, there's these elements to the particular bar. I think the reason why Don Beachcomber was so successful at the beginning was people. There you go, Don. There he is, Don the Beachcomber. There he is, walking around. Mm. There's Trader Vic walking around when Trader Vic's opened up. If you can do world building in your tiki bar and make this thing more than just, well, here's my bar and it happens to be tiki. If you can make a world out of this, not the necessarily characters, but just different things where people could be like, oh yeah, that's that tiki bar that has this and this and this. Right. I think the reason why I admire Frankie's so much is their swag. They have all these different types of tiki mugs. The characters are their mugs. You go in there and they have a mug shelf that's like yours right there, where it's like, and you have the lava latch. You got the jackpot one, the tiki band. That you have all these different. It's like almost they're like characters that could like represent the tiki bar. I'm starting to think that it's like, if you want to take something to the next level, if you want to take a tiki bar to the next level, you gotta create your own world.
Well, so you have individual point of view, you have a story, and you are raising characters.
Yeah.
And Disney's that. And I guess one other aspect, though, now that I'm thinking about this with you, and the rum's kicking in, I think somehow the Pirates, the Jungle Cruise, the Haunted Mansion, and even, maybe to a lesser extent, the Enchanted Tiki Room, and Indiana Jones Adventure maybe trailing, those all have a special overlap, maybe affinity with the tiki world.
Yep.
Because I would say those rides are, when we discuss bars or we go to other people's bars, and often it goes, I'm going to Disneyland, or I'm going for my umpteenth time, or with COVID I haven't been for a year. Oh my gosh, that's terrible. That we come back to those attractions over and over. And I think maybe too, there's also an overlap maybe with the jungle elements of the Jungle Cruise and Tiki, maybe Papua New Guinea or Polynesia, or of course the Enchanted Tiki Room, but also something about that world building. And then
one thing that we talk a lot about, like when it comes to Tiki, is that, you're talking about Star Wars,
Yeah.
Because there's Star Wars Tiki mugs. But we all just don't like one thing. I like several different things.
Yeah.
I like Tiki. I like Star Wars. I like horror. I like creepy stuff. I like goth stuff, obviously.
And music.
and everyone else is in the same boat. Like even like you have, here's a question for you. Like, say you were a kid going to Disneyland.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing that as a child, you're just gonna like it all. You might like Tomorrowland better than Frontierland, but you're gonna probably just like all of it. You just love it all.
Yeah.
And I think you just have all those loves that's in you, all these interests that are just in you the entire time. I think when it comes to tiki bars and when it comes to theme bars, it's just that I think that the tiki idea has been around for so long, starting in the 30s with Don the Beachcomber, that you say a tiki bar, it's like, and say you wanted to build a tiki bar. You know what you got to do. You've seen it. I'm just surprised that there's not a lot of other themed bars. Not maybe nautical, but not to the point where like it's a thing that I know of.
I can think of a few, beach bars, a few horror bars, not many.
Yeah. That's the key. Not many of a lot.
We talk about Clifton's, which is a unique animal. I don't know anyone else who's recreated a Gothic bar with a Yosemite-inspired redwood tree in the middle of it. So,
no.
I mean, that may be.
Even a goth bar, it's like, maybe a city might have like one, maybe two.
But even a goth bar may just be an industrial warehouse that plays goth music,
But you say a tiki bar, it's like, okay. Well, like think about what I find interesting is like if someone's going to build a home tiki bar,
Yeah.
First place you're going to start looking for pieces for your home bar is going to be like the antique shops and the thrift stores. And you'd be surprised just how much there is.
Yeah.
Like we could probably go to a Value Village or a Goodwill store. That's like if we were to Google and be like, go to the closest Goodwill that's here. I can guarantee you we can go in there and find at least one piece that could fit, that would be Polynesian or Hawaiian or whatever. Okay. Because it was that popular. It was that big a deal.
Yeah.
Throughout the decades.
Tying it back to Disney. So
yeah.
Disney.
Let's bring it on home.
Disney perfected the theme. And although the Universal and even Disney itself is branched out in new forms of that, and that unlike say Knott's Berry Farm, they perfected a theme with 5 or 6 worlds instead of one point of view of a theme, and that the tiki bars have escapism, and the best have either characters or a point of view or something to their world building, along with the classic elements that make it a tiki bar, or even not a tiki bar, an immersive tiki adjacent bar, and that they're sort of unique products. And something in our, if not DNA, our upbringing, either Disney itself or because the same thing that makes us appreciate Disney makes us appreciate or reappreciate tiki bars, or vice versa. I don't know, chicken and egg, which comes first, as adults, especially those of us who are middle-aged adults, who are Disney files and tiki files. Yeah. There's something about a Venn diagram where these worlds come really close, and I come back to my discussion with our friends Mark and Kim Cook last night, or with you, and it comes back to escapism. And Disney has perfected that escapism, but in a more alcoholic fueled world. The third wave renaissance of tiki, or whatever it's called now, we're back into that world as well, and we can create it in our homes. Mm-hmm. And so we create our own mini escapism, but we still desire to be with the big dogs, and to a lesser extent now that's Universal and some others. But still, when you talk about that escapism and all those world building and those authentic fantasy environments, is that term that I've sort of coined, oxymoron. Yeah. Disney's still the pinnacle of that. So that it all comes together. I can't articulate it very well, but I kind of think this discussion has sort of scratched my itch as to why this overlap even though I'm still stumbling through how to concisely say it. But a really good discussion that way.
I'm going to end it with this. I'm going to end it by talking about the Ramones really, really quick.
Because that's exactly where I thought you'd go.
We're all familiar with the punk band The Ramones. The sad tragedy about the Ramones is that they hated each other. They didn't get along. Mm-hmm. They didn't get along, and I think the long story short is I heard, for I understand, Johnny Ramone literally stole Joey Ramone's girlfriend and then ended up marrying her. Mm-hmm. Okay. And they were together till Johnny Ramone died a couple years ago. But they would go on tour, and supposedly, like, they tour in a van. And, like, they would all have, like, their own seat in the van, and they just wouldn't talk. But they continued to go on into, like, the mid-90s. And you're like, well, why would they do that? Why would they continue to be in this band where they didn't get along with each other? I guess the riff was more so between Johnny and Joey.
Okay.
But the reason why is because when they are on stage together, they're the Ramones. But as soon as that show was done, now there's Joey. Because I remember I used to live in New York City. And I actually would see Joey Ramone, like, walking around. Mm. And it was like the loneliest thing I've ever seen. It's just this lonely... Head down, lonely.
Lanky, long hair.
Yep. Carrying a plastic bag of groceries. And I'm just like... I actually kind of felt sorry for him. Because it was just sort of like... Because off stage, they're like, yeah, Johnny Ramone, there's Joey Ramone. But on stage, they're the Ramones. And I think when it comes to a tiki bar, and what Disney does best is they make something way more bigger and important than the original thing. Because just like I said at the very beginning, Disney World or Disneyland, whichever one you want to go with, it's more than just a place where there's a bunch of rides that you go on. Disney is so much bigger than that. It's this world. It's Disney World.